first pass on our 3Cs. We've got some camera, character, and control for an animated knight character. It can walk forward and backwards, attacks with the trigger. So we visited some animation concepts, some motion concepts, some systems, some Unity API, and it's a good place to stop and maybe change gears a bit. Like I said, we're going to work iteratively, so we want to add some more systems to our game. Right now, this is probably $2.15 Steam Early Access. We want to see if we can get to $3. And the way we do that is by adding some more gameplay. So that being said, we're making an RPG game, and it's either going to be action or turn-based with its combat. But no matter which decision we take, we're going to need some interactive objects. Now, with the examples we talked about last class, what are some simple objects that we want to put in this game? Maybe we'll need a health pack, which is what? Something you can walk up to and pick up. And can you use it, or does it auto-use itself? I mean, we see it sometimes both ways, right? Like, you might see a little red heart on the ground. You walk up to it, your heart meter goes up by 5 or whatever. There's other things like with the red cross symbol on it, and it goes in your inventory, and you have to like click on it, and it gives you a bigger one. So it might go either way.
We can have spells.
Yes, so we're brainstorming here. So we're something you can walk up to and pick up, and either auto use, or it goes in inventory and you use it there. And on use, it increases your life. That's some kind of a health thing we might need. Right? Are there any, to this use case, is there any other points we need to talk about? Is that all it does? It maybe goes away after use. Maybe it's a one-time use, maybe it's a one-time use or a 3-time use, or maybe it's infinite because it's like an enchanted item that you can use every 12 minutes of real time. Who knows? Or maybe infinite but time-based use. Like a skill bit or something, right? Oh, I can heal myself every so often and go to every as well. What's another interesting item? I like that.
Armors, like something to permanently increase your character attributes.
So we're talking about objects, and we want to get armor. Okay, I like it. So let's go with armor, and I'll go to that other point. So what?
Armor or weapons.
Armor or weapon. So armor. Let's talk about it. What's armor? It's like a helmet or a shield. Hey, we have those in our model. That's cool. Or like plate mail. Yeah, plate mail, chest plate, boots, right? Bracers. You hear sometimes shoulder. Oh yeah, ring is good, right? You equip backpack. I don't know. Anything else? What else is armor? Belt. What else is armor? Gloves, gauntlets, right? What else is armor?
Cloak or cape.
Pants, cloak, cape. What else is armor? Is that armor? Goggles, glasses. What else? Nose ring. What? Earring. Headband. What else can you equip?
Underwear.
True, very true.
Underpants. Okay. Sure. Anything else?
Oh, I see.
Socks.
Sure.
Lucky socks, bro. I think that's about it.
That's extensive.
Pendant.
Oh.
Morrowind.
It's in there.
Do we have a neck?
Yeah, we have necklace pendant. I got it.
Do you have necklace? Where?
Yeah, yeah.
Where's necklace?
Well, I said it.
You didn't receive belt.
Yeah, both up there. Alright,
Charms,
sounds good.
maybe?
Okay.
OP charms from D2.
Yeah, man.
So,
Poison charms.
what is an armor? An armor is something that can be equipped on the character. Is that true?
Yes.
So how do you equip something?
You have an inventory.
And it's
You
not
put it
Which means it was
selected.
was in your inventory and we selected it and now it's equipped on you in some appropriate slot. Spot. We'll say spot. We're not going to use the word slot yet, but we think we know where we're going with that, right? We can't equip a necklace on a finger. We can't equip a chest plate on your head. Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
Maybe we will have items that can be equipped in multiple spots. I don't know. Maybe there'll be a boot that you can equip on your foot and your head, and or a onesie or something. Maybe we will support that, but it will be explicitly through the way we design our system. But the idea is that you won't be able to arbitrarily equip anything anywhere. There will be this concept of a thing wants to go somewhere. Are we fair with that? Okay. Now when we equip something, it has to come from our inventory. Is that true?
Yeah.
Can we equip it from anywhere else? Can an NPC directly equip something onto us?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say no.
Hmm.
You gotta tailor, man.
It's like if you pick up
Something
something
can be
randomly appear in one
equipped onto us
If the
from
slot is available, maybe?
somewhere if the slot is available. So we actually don't care. In fact, so the item may or may not care where it came from. The item might be in our inventory, it might not. But what the item knows is that if you tell me that you want to equip me, I'm going to go on a slot if you have one.
Yes.
Okay. What else does an item do? An armor do?
You
Plus
find
your
it.
stats.
Oh, if equipped, it buffs your stats. Ooh, that means we need to know what stats are. What are stats? Health,
Mana.
mana, stamina,
Defense.
strength, speed,
Agility.
dex, thaco. I don't know if you're using rules 1 or 2 D&D.
Oh geez.
Luck.
Luck,
Resistance. Magic.
resistance to dragon breath, etc. We understand what stats are, right? They're numerical attributes on our character. If we're making an RPG, items are going to affect them so that our character plays differently. Are these things always positive?
No. No.
Could be negative.
Buff could be negative.
Yep.
Debuff.
-5 strength, +10 dex.
Can an item have affect more than one attribute at a time?
Yes.
Item can affect many attributes at one time. Can an item affect an attribute when it's not equipped?
No. No.
Yes,
Yes.
Talk about that.
like helmet or shield. So if you don't have it, if it's not on your body, it's your strength is less maybe, or
I like it. Definitely when I equip my shield, it should have an effect on me. But let's say I dequip it, but it's still in my inventory. Can it have an
weight
influence?
system, then yes.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I was
okay.
thinking of.
Yeah, if you have a weight
Yeah.
system where your avatar can only carry like 10
That's the
kg.
bit
Items
complex
might
though, right?
encumber our character when in the inventory. Okay.
Also,
What if you have a cursed ring in your inventory that you have not equipped?
Yeah.
Could it change your luck?
Yes, that's a serious.
Could it change your health?
Could, yeah.
Okay.
Could give you
So in
increased
general,
You have a
items can affect the player even when in inventory, not just when equipped. So items will be able to affect a recipient with a response based off of certain criteria. And that could be whether it's equipped or in inventory or even something else. What are some other ways an item or an armor? We're talking about armor here. I slipped into item, but we're still talking about armor, right? We're still talking about armor. What are other ways that an armor could affect us? Let's say, the helmet is on a pedestal and you're playing the game, you're walking, and I go to the door, and now I'm just kind of close to it. Can it have some kind of a radius of effect?
Depending on what it does, possibly.
Maybe if it's poisoned, or
They could have effects on the environment.
maybe.
Ooh, yeah.
Gravity, it's harder to move around this.
They can.
Can I lose health when I get close to a poisonous potion?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Potentially.
How about a cursed helmet
Or
or a cursed boot? Right, we're talking about armor.
let's say like a frost shield could freeze things.
Maybe maybe a frost shield. Unless you have the protection from ice spell, it's gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
Okay, so armor can affect the player with proximity. Any other ways? So we got equip, inventory, proximity.
Status. Blessed items.
Blessed items can help us, so we can take an item to a monk or a church or something, and we can change the way that their attributes are affected.
Yeah.
So we should support being able to change the buffs, debuffs, enchantments, in-game, dynamically. I like that. Is what we're talking about armor here, is it any different for weapons?
No.
So if we say weapons, examples of it will be,
Sure, this list could go on forever.
Yeah.
I'm changing armor, I'm expanding to weapons because and then I'll go to interactive object. So there is a method to,
I mean the list for weapons could go on.
we'll do just one line, yeah, so we got sword,
That's enough.
two-handed sword. Are we gonna support
One.
projectile weapons as well as melee
Yeah.
weapons?
I
Gotta
said
have
one.
archers, man.
So bow and arrow.
Bow and arrow / crossbow.
One. Thing with staff.
Yeah, one.
Wands,
Staff.
staves, fists,
Yeah.
like
Gauntlets.
knuckles, kind of a thing.
Hammers.
Yeah, brass knuckles. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, et cetera, et cetera.
There you go.
The properties that a weapon can be equipped into
Appropriate slot.
one or many slots, appropriate slots.
Spot.
Yeah, for two-handed, it can take up both hands, you can dual wield.
Did we have the same constraint for armor? Were we going to say that armor could be equipped into multiple slots concurrently?
Appropriately, yes.
What's an example?
A onesie.
A onesie would be like body and lower?
Yeah, it would be foot all the way up the top except for helmet.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
but,
fair.
like, let's say like a mechanics, like,
fair enough. And we understand that for weapons, we're gonna have support for multiple slots as well, guys? So for weapons, we're going to support the same one or many slot equipping, right? A two-handed sword can be equipped into 2 slots. Can a two-handed sword be equipped into one hand?
No.
if you're showing
If you have a certain skill.
If you have a certain skill, we can do that. We will support,
two-handed being one-handed.
two or one-handed based on skills. So we've got armor, we've got weapons. Are there any other types of interactive items?
Actual interactive items, like you click on this name on it and it does stuff. I don't know.
Well, we have the health
What's the
pack.
top one? What's the top one again?
Our
Health pack.
health pack.
Or
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
just have like special items,
achievements.
miscellaneous items.
Kind of achievements in environment, like if you pass this gate, you will gain these many lives or whatever.
Well, that would be
Yes.
under interactive, wouldn't it?
So trigger objects, right? So when enter, exit, or stay, an effect occurs. This could be buff, debuff, right? It could be an achievement. It could be spawn something, enemy item, object. It could be. We'll make this very generic. We'll call this, send message to other gameplay system. That's right. It'll be a very powerful gameplay scripting tool. Actually, the trigger object is going to be perhaps the most critical object you give to your designer when you design a gameplay pipeline. You're going to give them ways of connecting responses to trigger objects. And in action games, that's how you script a level. The character goes through trigger volumes and stuff happens. It's hasn't changed very much over the years. So health pack, trigger, any other kind of like health packy things, like things that you want to just touch and something happens. In Mario, it would be like a coin, right? That's an object you touch it and something happens, or a mushroom, you touch it, something happens. Are there any other like we touch it and something happens kinds of things?
So I think that will be included in trigger objects. That will be included in trigger objects.
Trigger object is like the generic one. You're right.
Money.
Money, gold, right? Specific instances would be like gold. What's gold? Can you, when you go in and walk up to it, you can, what does it do? It goes in your inventory, right? Goes in your inventory. What else does gold do?
Used for bartering.
can be used.
Yeah, you can
Illicit
get
services and or
different
items.
versions from Go or
Exchange for items.
Illicit service.
Okay. I like that. Potions.
Wait, what?
Are we gonna have potions?
Yep.
I'm like Fable territory here.
I know.
Listening to
I was kind,
this.
I was kind of thinking potions fell under the health packy section
Could be a mana potion, it's not health.
We can actually just take the health pack and put it
and
into
just make it potion.
that.
Oh, okay. But it bears saying that these objects actually behave very, very similarly. They just
Yeah.
change something different, right? So
Yeah.
same as health pack, but changes a different attribute. On touch,
On touch
or maybe on
or
use.
inventory.
Again, there are some objects that respond on touch, there are some objects that respond on use, and an on use is just on click from an inventory. Okay. Any other types of objects?
Um,
We could go with like
NPC
crafting
characters.
material. Yeah, sorry.
Crafting. Crafting is being able to combine two objects. If they are combinable, a new object is instanced. Agreed?
Yep.
Okay. I heard something else. Breakable pots. When damage is greater than health, object is destroyed and new object is spawned. Right? Damage message can come from a weapon hitting it or a spell or some other means. Anything else?
NPCs.
Yes, let's leave NPCs as not as an extension of object, but it will be.
Yeah.
Let's think just more about concrete objects that we interact with by touching them. Is this
Depends.
What?
Save points. Depending on the type, if it's like a bloodborne kind of thing. Yeah.
we'll put that under trigger objects.
Yep.
Save point response can be through a trigger. For example. So what do you notice about all this stuff?
They're very similar.
They're actually all very similar. It turns out most of the gameplay we've talked about here is on touch. When we go and we get close to some other thing, something happens. If you were to write this in OO, what would your base class be?
Touch object or something like that.
I here got touchable object, I've got item.
A game object.
What's the base behavior? In Unity, game object is definitely crucial. Everything will be a game object. All our objects will be game objects, but how we construct them, how we construct our sort of game engine stuff, is going to help us implement all this stuff. And we're going to avoid inheritance as much as possible.
You're gonna avoid it?
We're going to avoid inheritance. Inheritance is the root of all evil. I'm going to teach you by the end of this class, you're either going to love or hate me, but object-oriented programming is an overused and inappropriate tool for large scalable systems. What we're going to see is that, at least through Unity, composition, or Haza, is a far more simple and elegant way of building scalable code. And our goal will be to look at different aspects of the behavior of these objects, and once we identify what those aspects are, we will implement each aspect individually. And then we will compose those aspects together, and we will give them ways of communicating with each other. And by doing it that way, we'll find that since we'll only have to write each aspect once, we'll be able to know that they work, and we'll be able to prove that our code works a lot quicker.
So the base object here would be, or not, thing would be like an item or something?
So we're going to use game object as our base object, but we're using Unity. And how does Unity work? How do you specialize the behavior of a game object in Unity?
By adding components.
By adding components through composition, right? So we will use the mix-in pattern and build a library of aspects. So this is aspect-oriented programming versus object-oriented programming, okay? So no large inheritance trees. lots of haza and can and maybe some isa. Maybe we will use some isa, but we will use it in a way that's through composition. Okay? We're not saying we're throwing out inheritance completely. There's definitely some important uses for it, but we will not overuse it, as is the tendency. Why are we doing this?
No, are you saying you're just minimizing its use?
Oh, is from inheritance? Oh.
We will use inheritance sparingly in order to build this system. And so, like in the early 2000s, at least in the games industry, people moved from OO to aspect-oriented as a way of avoiding large inheritance problems, because we find that as code bases grew to 10, 15, 20 years long, and you get 20, 25, 30 inheritance chains, possibly branching if you're in C++ with multiple inheritance, we found that code became unmaintainable, and also that compile times ended up being like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day. And being able to change your code once a day is not a good way to make a product quickly or cost effectively. So we have to change the way we think about software, and using composition instead of inheritance is the way that we do this.
So instead of it would just be is distractful kind of thing.
Something like that. We're going to look at the different aspects. Can be touched. What happens when it's touched? Oh, it self-destructs. It can be equipped. What happens when it's equipped? Oh, it buffs things. What does that mean? It's buffable. What can it buff? It can buff an attribute. So we'll look at these aspects and we'll build some code to connect them.
Okay.
And once we have this library of stuff, we'll make all kinds of stuff real easily. AOP is OP. It is now 5 to 5, so we'll break for next week. But think about that. Google mix-ins if you like. There'll be more next week. Don't quit. It gets better.